All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Find Me a Movie, Episode 1, 12 Angry Men. This is where me, Michael, and Khizer
Hello.
will be discussing and talking about different movies, more specifically the 2000 top 250 on IMDb in alphabetical order. Basically, why we liked it, what makes it so good, or if you haven't heard of the movie, then we're happy to let you know about it. 12 Angry Men is from 1957, starring Henry Fonda, Lee J. Cobb, and directed by Sidney Lumet. It's a movie by 12 jurors, and they have to decide whether this person is guilty or not, and it's capital punishment. So he'll get the chair. He'll die if they decide he is guilty. Um, and basically, they have to come to a unanimous decision. So that's where the conflict comes in. Kaiser?
Yeah, let's start off with the how the director wanted to tell the story. It's one thing to have a story, and it's another thing to how you want to present that. So, as we know, spoiler alert, there are 12 men in there, and they're all angry. And what we didn't know, they're all in one room. Okay, so we promise not to make it a spoiler alert, but come on, I had to give that one away. Um,
So they're all angry.
that was a secret, you idiot. No. They weren't always angry, but it's funny because once you're in one room together with people, people begin to get annoying, and I'm
I
in
can
this
I can verify that with you.
I'm in this chat with you. Yeah, I know. I hate your guts. Um, but yeah, this is what happens, and it's 12 people, and they have to decide. And what I really liked is that there's a case, there's a murder case, and there is capital punishment on the line, but we kind of grow with them because as they talk more evidence come into the table, we learn more and more, and our perspective changes as theirs. And I think that was the best way to portray that movie, and they couldn't have never ever done it better.
hmm And touching on the director aspect, one thing he did that I really liked was that he kept the takes long with minimal cuts, and it's a different way to tell the story, right? Um, I thought those long takes were something that you don't usually see too often now. And it's just an interesting way to tell the story.
Do you think the modern movies miss those long takes? Do you think they had something different that we can offer, like movies today can offer?
It's just a different style. Directors have all their different styles, but there was a recently movie that did something like that. 1917, that war movie. But yeah, it just depends on the director, really. It's just a different style. I'm saying like I'm a fan of that style. I noticed it. Um, many people probably wouldn't notice it.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's amazing how you think about how film evolve, right? How a story is told, and what is the because like the directors, how do they want to tell us the story? And
Yeah,
that's one thing
the
that we
uh,
can.
the the tight shots, right, of their
Yeah,
face.
yeah, we can talk about that later. It's very important for that. Do you want to just hop right in and see? Because we got the movie down, what it's about, and how it's portrayed. Let's talk about the actors.
Right. Uh, who was your favorite?
Ooh, it's. I'm not gonna sound cliche by saying that. Oh, the main one because he's good.
Or not who is your favorite? That's a silly question. But let's just say, which character stood out the most for you?
Hmm. Now, it's important that I don't give this away because you have to think about that each person comes in with their own personality, and each of that personality is essentially us, human beings, from different walks of life, and their perspective on the whole case and what they've heard in the courtroom over the days they were there. So I'm going to choose not to answer that question because I don't want to give that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I might. I'm afraid of giving that away. But there's a lot of amazing great personalities, and there's not one person I'd be like, oh my God, be quiet. Like every one of them had something to say, and every time they would say something, I wanted to hear it because you would learn about them and how they view the case. And I think that was very important.
Yeah, seeing the different contrast in all 12 jurors, that was really interesting to see how different they were from one another, and how they progress towards the end of the movie, you know, how
Yeah,
they change, how they evolve was very, very interesting.
yeah, and I think when we do conclude this conversation in talking about the overall message of the movie, I think having those different personalities in that room together and their change, like you mentioned, is very important to the conclusion of the story or the movie, I'd say. So I think it's important, best reserved, and we'll tell you that there are unique personalities within this movie, and it's very important that they're kept unique.
What do you think that the primary message was that by the
I think
director? What did he want to tell? What was the most important part? What did he
I,
want us to take away?
Yeah, no, no, that's amazing because I think when you watch that movie, it's more of a social commentary in one way or another, right? Because it shows that we people have different perspectives, and from our backgrounds, we perceive information differently. We notice certain things differently, and how we come to learn information, to unlearn that information and change our perspective, what's required. So we
Mm-hmm.
come in with our own preconceived understanding of our reality, but what does it take to change our reality to understand someone else's reality? And I think the whole movie just kind of leads you to that, different personalities just changing their views as more information changes their perception.
Yeah, and it's really hard to change somebody's truth once they've convinced themselves that it is the truth.
No,
If you're trying to convince somebody that's not the truth, but they've convinced themselves that it is the truth, it's very hard to make them change their mind.
and even admitting you've made a mistake, if you've made a judgment call and apologizing for making a
Right.
mistake, I mean, there wasn't any need for apologizing, but to admitting a mistake you've made is very hard because it kind of it feels like a hit on a pride for a lot of men, I would say,
Mm,
too.
yeah. Let's talk a little bit of the writing, because this movie is set in one room, which just goes to show you that the writing has to be on point. Did anything stand out for you with the writing?
I want to throw that question back at you too, but I'm gonna say the dialogues had to be phenomenal, and the delivery of the dialogues had to be phenomenal because not only are we deciphering information in the dialogues, we're also looking at their emotions and how they say those dialogues to get us an understanding of what's going on. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, but yeah, no, you know what? Let me hear your take on it too, because I think you would have something good to say.
Because yeah, it was. I liked how there was some comedy in there too. There was scenes where you know they were kind of making fun of one another, saying how ridiculous they were, for believing or not believing things. But um, the story kept moving forward. There was never really a dull scene in the movie, so that just goes to show that how good the dialogue was.
It almost feels like you're in that room too,
Yeah.
because you're listening to people and you have to make a decision on what's going on, and you're really listening to the keywords of what they say. And it isn't like, how some movies, there's like the clue is right there, and people in the movie are not really picking it up, and you're just like getting angry at your TV screen because you're like, oh my God, it's right there. He's the guy who did it, right? But it didn't have that because I feel like we were understanding information with them. When they were picking up information, we're like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. What did that mean? So I felt like I was in the room. I was the 13th guy, uh, just locked out of the washroom or something like that. But if I felt, I felt I deserved to be in that room too.
But yeah, I mean the film does a good job in making you relate to the characters, making you relate to the situation. And that's why the movie is so good, because you can put yourself in their shoes. It
Uh,
it also has a deeper message um, in between uh, in between the lines. There's a deeper message going on with the relationships, um, not just relationships between them, but family relationships, uh, and that made this movie extra special.
Funny you say that. Why don't we? I know we didn't want to talk about the characters, but I think we can talk about the protagonist and the antagonist because you did mention them in our opening dialogue when you mentioned who's starring in the movie. So, what did you take on them?
Well, I mean, one like one is by the book, that that's that's the here's what I'm gonna say. The antagonist and the protagonist, they did a really good job with creating conflict and driving the story forward. But just what I loved was that they were both fighting conflicts within themselves as well, and that was my favorite part about that. It's just seeing, not just dealing with the conflict in that room, but dealing with the conflict within themselves. That was my favorite part.
That's amazing that you put it like that because I almost feel like for the case to be resolved, for the jury to walk away with a single unanimous decision on what they think is right, they had to deject themselves from their own reality. And so I feel like we start off with people with their own. I mean, would you say the protagonist was within his fighting within his reality, or do you think he was uh, he was the only one that was out of it? Sorry, I'm not trying to spoil the movie, but it's important.
No, I think that he was the only one that he doesn't say whether he's guilty or not, but he was the only one that um, just wanted to learn more, a little bit more of the situation.
Yeah,
You know,
he recognized the implication of it, and it's important that someone does that.
because
But
the stakes were so high, and when the stakes are that high, then you just have to really just slow down and think.
and um, and it's important we do that. We talk about this because it's not really a movie of like, aha, I knew it. It's a movie of how do they come to that? I feel like the answer may be there. The answer what the audience wants is probably clear cut, but how you get there is the most important part, and that's what makes this movie great. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, it
you know
had a
what?
ton of life lessons and good 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 meaning behind it.
Let's talk about the scenes because I know you mentioned the directing style.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what was your favorite scene in the movie?
Um, I don't want to give it away because it might be a spoiler.
But you can just
Um,
kind of graze over it. Just give us a little bird's eye view of what was going on.
I think I've touched on it. It was basically the scene where the climax of the movie where he was, not only fighting within that room, but also fighting himself. That was my favorite scene.
Yeah, and I think you can elaborate a little more without ruining the movie because you can talk about it like why do you think that battle was so important for him? Like his internal battle.
Well, just seeing how emotionally he was, how much it affected him. You know, um, there was such a wide range of emotion, um, and you can see it change him. You can see it eat away at him, and you you do kind of feel for him at the same time that you don't want him to win, but you feel bad for him as well.
Yeah, and I like that. I like when it's not that you point your fingers and say that's the bad guy. Michael, you know where that dialogue's from?
Take a good look at the bad guy.
So say say goodnight to the bad guy.
You
It
need
wasn't
people
that.
like me.
It didn't have that, and I love when movies do that because there's a bit of realism where the guy is quote unquote bad, uh, but you see his side too. It's just that he
You
doesn't have to come
understand where
around.
he's coming from.
Yeah, and it's important that we do that because no, and I really like that they added that touch because it was a 1950s movie. So
It's
I
as
think
if you were homeless. Sorry to cut you off. It's as if you were homeless and you go rob a loaf of bread. I'm not saying you're right, but I understand where you're coming from.
that's true, and it is hard to really be like, oh come on, let it go. Like imagine you're the shop owner. It's going to be hard for you to accept that reality, perhaps, but I'm sure in a different circumstance, if you were to view it from a different perspective, you probably may have a change of heart. And I think that's what this movie does, though. It's you look at things first from their perspective and their background, and then they begin to get away from themselves and say, okay, you know what? Maybe I see it this way now.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that
You know what I'll say, Kaiser? You know what was an underrated quote in that movie?
say it.
Um, there was a quote where Henry Fonda, he says to one of the jurors, suppose suppose he didn't do it, right? Or suppose he wasn't there at the time the man was killed. And the other juror said, well, you can suppose anything, Suppose this building were to fall on our heads right now. that that line, just the delivery of that line and the way he said it, how nonchalantly. It's like you can suppose anything. That was a great underrated quote.
Yeah, and it's important that you there are factual matters and there are matters which you are like you're just supposing, which is basically you are I know you're trying to think through a conclusion, but facts are facts. That's important too. um but I guess it also tells you that there aren't many facts which are black and white. There could be a gray area in this. So having a suppose within this conversation kind of shows that, look, anything can be viewed in both sides or it has a middle ground.
Yeah, that's the main takeaway. To conclude, the main takeaway I got from this was, there's always two sides to the story, and you should always try to find out both sides before coming to a conclusion. And it's important not to jump to conclusions. Never to judge someone too quickly without information about who they are and what they do or situation. That's that's my takeaway from this film.
Can I talk about my favorite scene though? I loved every scene where they were shutting off
No.
the old guy. Did you know I was gonna say that?
Wait, what was your favorite scene?
When they kept shutting off the old guy.
Yeah. That was more than one scene then, right?
All of them. I love the fact that it was just so real because I'm not gonna lie, man. Like I don't want to be rude, but a lot of times when old people are talking, you don't really have an inclination to be like, "Hey, I wonder what he has to say," you know. But you'll be respectful enough to sit down and listen. But
Right.
but
It,
that
it
movie,
is it is that is yeah, kind of the truth.
the movie understood us. Like finally, thank you guys
Oh,
for
you're
making.
a prick.
I love I love when movie gets us. It's just like that's what I would do, and thank you. And there's a scene when he's like, "Excuse me, sir, I'm talking here." And actually, you know what? Henry Fonda says a really good line there too. He's like, "He'll never listen. Don't worry." Like he'll just says he'll never listen. And that was
That
really
that
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 was
was
really
a great
important.
quote.
That was a really important line because it tells us about society that there are just people that will just never want to listen. They don't care. They'll never care until
Yeah,
it really affects them, right? But
that's true.
you want to
That's
talk about
true.
any bad scenes? Because I know it's a 1950 movie, so we can't really go into it and be like super critical.
No, I honestly I didn't think there was any scene where it made me say, "Well, that shouldn't be in there," you know. So I
Yeah,
think overall they kept it short. It's only an hour and 36. Um, so it was pretty pretty good overall.
you're not going to question the fact that they were probably not patted at the door before they walked in the court, or they're
Nah, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing I would say is that they they brought in evidence into the jury room, which I don't believe it's allowed. Could be wrong, but I don't think that's allowed. But
I'm just
that's
glad that I wasn't in that. I'm not part of the jury duty because I know it's our responsibility to do it, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'll tell you when it happens and if I get selected for it. Lucky number 12.
please don't. I don't care.
Not from you.
All right, that wraps it up. Lastly, I will say, there's probably going to be a couple people not wanting to watch this movie because they're like, there's no helicopter, there's no car chase, no action, no bullets. Screw this. This movie sucks. There has to be someone out there that would say that.
No, and I agree. You know what? It also depends on your mood too. Or what are you in a mood? Like I don't want to come across as pseudo intellectual where I'm trying to everything has a deep meaning, and if you don't like what I like, then you're not smart as me and you don't see what I see. I think I think we all are we're more attracted to things that we can relate to at a particular point in our life or our emotional state, whatever that is, right?
Yeah.
And I think during this quarantine, we've had more time to really think about things and life in general. So when we have the patience to sit through movies, because I know nowadays our attention spans are so little, um, but to sit through a movie and to really, just really think through and what's going on and really give attention, I think we've been able to do that in this free time.
Hmm.
So it's yeah, like you said, it's an hour and 36-minute movie. There's no real fast action to really um, quench our thirst for constant instant gratification through explosions and car chases and everything. But
Yeah.
it's a good sit down movie to really think through and really wanting to know how this case
And
unravels.
and it does get emotional at the end. It does get a little emotional for a brief second, and for a brief second, jeez, Christ. It does get a little emotional towards the end, which it's it was a special scene, that ending. But that concludes. I think that's pretty much it. Any last thing I'll say?
You know,
Anything else?
I'm gonna say this though. We've seen this about two times. We've seen it before, but we've seen this two times before we did this, and it's one of those movies that if I had to watch again, I'd probably sit down and watch it again, and probably hoping to pick up things that I didn't pick up before, and that's when you
So
know it's a
you'd
good
be able
movie.
to watch it again.
Yeah, like if I had to go back to it within like 2 3 months, or because mind you, I've seen it two times already, but if I had to go back to it, say one more time this month, and then for like 2 months, I go back to it again, I wouldn't really, I wouldn't say no. I've already seen it. I know what's gonna happen. I wouldn't mind picking up like the scenes because I really liked how. You know what? I'd watch it again. That's
All right. Well, you said that already. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. This
Is this guy on
concludes.
repeat or something?
This concludes. Thanks for listening,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you guys next
Take care, guys.
time.